The following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors Network.
This is Pete Fletcher, and welcome to Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show. This week, we're excited to bring my friend and the beard, Nick Mielke, to you. Join us as we talk about his fan journey, the state of Star Wars, and the impact of Luke Skywalker returning to The Mandalorian. So strap yourselves in, relax, and enjoy this journey around the galaxy. Well, welcome to episode number 96 of Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show. I am your host, Pete Fletcher, and we are a part of the Beyond the Blast Doors Network. Happy New Year, everybody. This is our first show of 2021, and I couldn't be happier to be here. If this is your first visit with Around the Galaxy, well, welcome aboard. Thank you so much for joining us. And if this is a return visit, well, you know the drill. Thank you so much. Please follow us on Twitter at ATGcast and keep up with us on BeyondTheBlastDoors.com, where you can keep up with shows like the Chronicles every Monday. Josh and Andy bring you stuff about collecting and toys. Tuesdays, you get this show. On Wednesdays, you get David Amilati, Arzu Amin, and this week, Scotty J-Ro on the live version of BTBD Live. And then on Fridays, we have our brand new show. I'm gonna do a little bit of a reveal here. No, I'm not. I got rid of the video, so I'm not going to reveal it. But the show's called Force Connect, and it happens live every Friday night, and where you are our guests every week. And then on Saturday, you get the Bombad cast with Scotty and Jerry talking about everything Star Wars. I can't tell you what that show's about because I don't know what we're going to get, and I think that's the great thing about it. So this week, I'm really excited because I'm bringing you an interview with a guy who's become a friend of mine, and it's really interesting. 2020 was a bit of a mess, to put it really bluntly and politely. But one of the great things I think about 2020 was the fact that there were opportunities to get to know people, and through social media and through Star Wars and through the Star Wars community, we've had an opportunity to hang out and get to know people. And one of those people is tonight's guest, Nick Mielke. Nick is the host of a podcast called Podcast of the Whills, and he's just an all-around good guy. I mentioned in the intro, we call him the Beard. So without further ado, let me bring in Nick Mielke. Nick,
Pete,
how are you? How's things going?
I am excellent, and I am thrilled to be here tonight.
I'm excited to have you here. You know, as I said in the intro, you know, you and I have kind of gotten to know each other over the last year or so through social. Maybe tell us a little bit about Podcast of the Whills, and then remind me how we even met.
I will be glad to. You share a similar story with our friend Andy from the Chronicles. Podcast of the Whills is the podcast that I host with my really good friend Steve Renault. Steve is a United Methodist pastor. His sister went to school with my wife. His wife was in my youth group back in my college days, and then we were coworkers. Like, we have this long connection. And one day, gosh, almost 4 years ago now, we were having a conversation at a Christmas party about Star Wars, and kind of figured out how much the two of us were so deeply in the hole about Star Wars, and said we should have a podcast. And so we decided, you know, nobody may listen to it, but it'll give the two of us an excuse to talk to each other about Star Wars and just nerd out and whatever. And so we kind of tried to come up with, you know, even then 4 years ago, when there were only 78,000 Star Wars podcasts, we were, at least, I feel like we wanted to have an angle. We wanted to have something more than just 2 hours of trailer reviews, which we've done, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But we came up with this idea. We called it Podcast of the Whills, and our little tagline when we open each show is we're a podcast that treats Star Wars like a sacred text.
Right.
Steve is a United Methodist pastor. I worked in churches for a bunch of years, and the deal is not that the podcast is not a Christian podcast. Instead of having a Bible study, it's like Star Wars is our Bible. So when we have these episodes, that's right. You know, it's a Star Wars Bible study where the text that we are using is not the actual Bible, but it is Star Wars. So the first,
it's close, and for some people, I think it's very close.
It totally works. And of course, there's the crossovers, and there's all the things that George did when he wrote it. And so, like, our first, I don't even know what we even call these anymore. I won't say our season, but the original run of the first set of episodes was we took Star Wars, as we would call it, New Hope, as some would call it. Right. And we broke it down into like 6 or 8 categories. And so from the opening crawl to, when 3PO and R2 come out of the escape pod. That was our video clip for that episode. And the theme of that episode would be partnership. And it was about 3PO and R2 together.
Right.
And then we did the next episode we basically went through the whole movie and broke it down into sections. So we had stuff about death. We had stuff about, courage. And each episode focused around that theme with the, connecting point and the underlying text being Star Wars.
Right.
So we did that. We finished up Star Wars, the original run, several months ago. We were blessed last year with The Mandalorian, which was 8 weeks of guaranteed content.
Exactly.
And then we got a second season. So now, as that has ended a couple of weeks ago, I'm a little twitchy. Like, what are we going to be doing now? But Steve actually reached out, and we're putting together an Empire run that's going to be kind of like our first series. I know, just a little reveal or preview, I have asked you to be a part of that.
Yes, I can't wait.
And we're gonna talk about. I'm not gonna say what the topic or theme for that one will be, but you're gonna be on for the Empire run.
Yep.
So it's something fun. It's an excuse to talk about Star Wars. Our wives don't understand it and don't care. So it's another one of those ways to just have fun. We love talking about, the news when there's news to talk about. We've done ridiculous trailer reviews. I don't know that we'll ever go quite that deep on trailers again.
I think you have to. I think if you're going to have a Star Wars podcast or Star Wars video or just any conversation,
everybody has one. Yeah, everybody has one. We did, I believe it was a Last Jedi trailer that we went over 2 hours talking about the minute and 45-second trailer.
It's amazing. And it's funny too, the way I mentioned this not too long ago, how the movie industry, the film industry, and primarily any one of the genres has literally created this world where they have a commercial for a commercial, right? Like the day before you get a commercial. Then when you go to YouTube to watch the video, they've monetized it. So you're going to get a Nissan commercial or something else. And then you're going to watch a commercial for a movie. And then the amazing thing is we talk about it. We spend so much time and we create these theories, which are never right, by the way. And but it's one of the appeals. And I love the reaction videos. I don't know. You've probably seen like Mark Thompson's reaction videos and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is actually a really terrible way to describe our podcast, but it's fun. We have a great dedicated listenership. We're thankful that people listen to our podcast. And again, it's something fun for us to do. It's a way to, exercise creative muscles like you do. But to come back to your other question, how did we meet? How did we catch up? I found Around the Galaxy. I don't entirely know how I found Around the Galaxy.
Right.
But I found it and I started listening and I liked it immediately. You do such a good job. I've said this to you many times. You're such a good interviewer. But it was a podcast that clicked for me, and especially in a phone that already has way too many podcasts on my list in a million different genres.
Right.
But I gravitated to that. But what I heard early on, and I think I found Around the Galaxy like third or fourth episode.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So I've been around for a minute. But what stood out to me in that moment at the end was you said, if you or somebody should be a guest on our podcast, let me know. Mm-hmm. Well, being the nobody that I am, I said, well, he said it, so I'm going to let him know.
That's right.
I messaged you on Twitter.
Yep.
And, I'm sure like the million other people that send you messages like that, you're like, oh, okay, dude, whatever. Cool. We'll see. Maybe, I've got a lot of stuff lined up right now, but, as the schedule opens up.
It only took 93 episoents. I think that's pretty good then.
It was totally worth the wait. So I messaged you over that. And then we have, we've sent messages back and forth. I would see things that you posted on Twitter that stood out or, pinged for me. So I would send you a private message. Hey, I really appreciate that you said that. I think some of it was, some early fandom menace stuff where you were, pushing back against some people. And I just wanted you to know, hey, there's other people that agree with you. And so we just kind of have continued those conversations. And then, as I said about Andy, at some point I suckered you into giving me your phone number. And so now I text you instead of, Twitter messages where you can ignore them.
Yeah. I'm going to have to change my number. I think
that's right. It's gotten too close.
No, I'm kidding. But this is what's fun about it is let's talk for a second about the Star Wars community, because I mentioned at the top of the show, 2020 was a weird year solely because, if for no other reason, because we couldn't get out of the house as much, right? I mean, I was saying earlier, I was talking to David Jesse of Tatooine Sons, and I was saying, this is the first time in my entire life, that I didn't spend Christmas with my parents because they they didn't, we couldn't get
Right.
together because, and so, all the friendships and all the things that you build in sort of natural real life have been suspended, right? Since March, so
Yes.
I find that the Star Wars community, the social media community, has become even more important. It's become a more important piece of dealing with your day, right? Because it's not just, I'll be totally transparent. I spend way more time on Twitter than I absolutely should. So much, in fact, that my son sometimes will say to me, "How's things going on Twitter, Dad?" And I feel really bad. And I wish he had a Twitter account so I could talk to him. So, but it's this bizarre situation, and I feel like this last year, we are doing the show live now. Love to hear from the people in the chat as well. But like, how has the Star Wars community helped you in this last crazy 9 months of being locked down?
It's been amazing, and you hit the nail on the head with 2020, the weirdness, time spent doing different things. You and I have talked a little bit. I lost my job 2 weeks before the pandemic started in March. And so, that has been a big thing for my family to deal with. We're fine. We're going to continue to be fine. Everything's great. But it came at a time where we're all at home, and we say all the time, I have said this to you as well. And actually thankful to Shannon and some of her videos. I got to be in one of those. I have 4 daughters. I have a wife, and I have a dog who is also a girl. So there is no other males in my house.
Yep.
and we have spent the last 10 months together, not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're actually really good at being together. We like each other, so that's a plus. But adding to that is figuring out new ways to have an outlet. I already had a Star Wars podcast, but that wasn't, entirely the deal. And so when I found Around the Galaxy, which was before this year, when I found Chronicles was early this year, the live shows, and the live shows are such a good part of that. And another connection part, I see our friends Framey are in the chat.
Yeah.
Frank and Amy live in Huntsville, Alabama, about 3 hours north of me.
Wow.
And so we're, close to each other. I know that Scotty lives in Louisiana. There's this group of people in the South. I'm in Montgomery. We have connecting points, and that's what's so fun about not only the internet, but something like a Star Wars fandom. So to show up in these chats and have, oh, there's my friend, there's Matthew, there's, whoever it is, you get excited to see each other, and you send around those little rounds of highs. And then we quickly devolve into making bad jokes or talking about, Pete Flexer or whatever the joke of the night is that we all beat into the ground. But that's what's so wonderful about this, not only the Star Wars community, but I'll even say the Beyond the Blast Doors Network community. Y'all have done such a good job of pulling together not only shows that are not all the same. I know that was very intentional. You guys had a plan for, David does this, Around the Galaxy is this, Chronicles is this, Shannon show is this, all the different things. Bombad Cast. The best thing I've heard anybody say was, I don't know how to describe what they do.
And I love that.
I do too. It's fantastic.
I have to say, the Bombad Cast is my, I don't know what I'm going to do in the winter. They're my mowing the lawn podcast that I listen to. And it's funny, even in the network, Scotty or Jerry will give us a little hint, but I have no idea where it's going to go. And it's so much fun. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're fine. And to make my own apology to Scotty and Jerry, because we've had some messages back and forth lately, catching up and connecting on some different things. But you and I are close enough to the same age. Josh and Andy and I are about the same age. Like, there's a connecting point there for where we grew up in Star Wars, where we are in life, all those different things. Scotty and Jerry are young guys. Yeah. And that's not a knock. David's a young guy too. But the energy, Scotty and Jerry are just younger enough to me that when that energy hits, there's a moment where I go, am I ready for this? I don't know if I want to do this or not. So I have been slower to get to Scotty and Jerry than I have everybody else. Yeah. But I'm 1,000% on board for their shows. And I've started trying to play catch up on the ones I haven't heard. Yeah. And I love what they do. And it makes me happy and it brings me joy. So even if I am the old man screaming at people on my lawn, I'm like, those two are fine. Leave them alone. They get a pass.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your introduction to Star Wars, because like you said, I mean, you're probably not as old as me. Because
I'm not as old as you.
There are rocks that are younger than me, but The point. So tell me about your first experience with Star Wars. What got you into it, and what is it about it that has kind of kept you
Absolutely
your entire life, I would imagine?
Absolutely. I was born in 78, so
Okay.
I'm 42 years old. Star Wars was out. I was too young really for Empire, but by the time Jedi came out, like I was there. I saw Jedi at a drive-in theater in my parents' station wagon when we still lived in Illinois. And it's always been there. And that's exactly the point. I've had this conversation several times. Like there's never a time in my life where I haven't had Star Wars. I got honestly connected up to it through my dad. You and I over the last little bit, as we've messaged, we have so many different things in common. We both are bass players. There's so many just little
connected. You're a bass player. I totally forgot about that.
Right. Yeah.
All right, we're going to turn this into a bass podcast this week. No.
That's right. There's a whole other thing going on there. But we've had all these little connecting points, and I hear you talk about your dad, the board game, the sci-fi stuff.
Yep.
My dad has always been a sci-fi guy, and he definitely introduced me to Star Wars. My dad has always been more of a Trek guy than a Star Wars guy. So I am conversant in Star Trek. It's not really my game. I'm fine with it. I have no issues with it. It's just I'm Wars, he's Trek.
Right.
So he got me introduced, but I grew up with it. I had some toys as a kid. I didn't have all the toys I wanted as a kid, which is now why I'm trying to recollect all of the ones I never had or did have and lost. But I've always had it. And so for people my age or people of my generation to grow up with Star Wars, we went through, after Jedi was over with, what we like to call the dark time.
Yep.
And in the early 90s, I found the Thrawn trilogy from Timothy Zahn. That was the thing. And I read, Crystal Star, the Thrawn trilogy, the Young Jedi Academy trilogy, like all those things. And so to hear you have Kevin J. Anderson on, I'm like, ooh, I read his books. Like that was that's again, that connecting point, that what is it like the stories, about how that all worked at that time in the 90s and how it was all so freewheeling. And, we're all just kind of writing books and hoping they all kind of line up somewhere together. But if they don't, it's fine. People are still going to buy them. Like, I love that.
Time. Yeah.
It's just a different time. It wasn't the canon era. It wasn't, all of that. So that was my connecting point to all of that, getting through the dark times with the extended universe, expanded universe. And then I was in college when the prequels came out, and I was like, holy hell, we're getting new Star Wars. What do I do with my hands? Like, I don't know what to do with myself. It was so exciting. And so here's my funny story about that. Episode 1 came out, Phantom Menace. And I was that 99 Phantom Menace?
99. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I was a senior in college. I had friends that were, either people at school that wanted to go see it, whatever. We were going to go see the midnight showing when Phantom Menace released in Montgomery, Alabama. We were over at my buddy's house at like 10 o'clock. We're waiting, and we turned on the 10 o'clock news. And on the 10 o'clock news, they were at our local movie theater with a reporter talking about Star Wars is coming out. And there was a line, and there were all these people lined up behind her. It's a big deal. It's a big night. We haven't had Star Wars in however many years. It's this whole thing. So we kind of freaked out. We're like, we need to go ahead and get there, because if there's a line already, we don't want to get bad seats. We left, and we were like 5 minutes away, but we ran over to the movie theater. We got there. It wasn't 10:30 yet. Like the 10 o'clock news hadn't ended, but we got there. They staged a line for the 10 o'clock news behind we pulled up to the movie theater, and there was no one outside.
Oh my gosh.
Like they legitimately got people to stand in line behind her while she did her stand-up spot, and then they cut it. And so we hung out at the ice cream place next door for an hour until it was time to go in. And so then we got prequel movies, and they weren't what I wanted. And as I'm sure we're going to talk about in a little bit, I also didn't lose my mind.
Right.
I also didn't have Twitter. I also didn't have social media. I didn't, we were at AOL Instant Messenger phase at that point. Like it was very contained. There wasn't a lot there. But the thing that I kind of come back to all the time is there's never been a point in my life where I didn't have Star Wars. I was born after it came out. It's still going on. And now as a dad with 4 kids, they have Star Wars. And I have 12-year-old twins. I have an 8-year-old, and I have a 4-year-old. And my twins, Harper and Lily. Harper is my Star Wars kid. Like she's 1,000% in everything. Like she's kind of mad right now that she's not out here like doing this with me. But to see her come into Star Wars and to see what brings her into Star Wars and to see what the things that she is drawn to are not the things that I'm drawn to.
Right.
And that's fine. And I love that. And you talk all the time about windows and doors into the Star Wars universe with Jackson, Clone Wars, Clone Wars to me, I've said this several times. Clone Wars for me has kind of been like a reference book. Like I love Rebels. I'm fully in the tank for Rebels.
Yep.
But I almost use Clone Wars to go back and look up things they talked about in Rebels. I'm like, oh, I need to watch the Mortis arc. Oh, I need to watch the Siege of Mandalore arc. And now I've seen it all. And now I want to watch it all from the beginning because the last part was so good. But it's just, I've always had Star Wars. That's really it. There's never been a time when it hasn't been a part of my life.
So let's go there for a minute because you outlined a handful of things.
A lot.
That's all. Hey, I'm
a podcaster.
Hear me talk. They want to hear my guest talk. If they want to hear me talk, listen to the shows that I guest on. I don't. But so let's go there because you bring up an interesting point about Clone Wars as a reference point, or as a reference book, or as I'm going to throw out a hot take. I think you could say that Dave Filoni fixed the prequels, and what I mean by that is, you and I of the same, similar age, but still, when the prequels came out, to the point you made, they weren't what we wanted. And I've become, as Ken Knopsack says, and I say it all the time on this show, a reformed prequelist, right? I
am as well.
I love the prequels now. I
will drink to Ken on a reformed prequelist.
Here's to Ken.
There we go.
I clearly need some more in here. So, but the point is, there's a point here. Filoni created or worked with George to create Clone Wars and then owned it and ran with it. What he did by creating those stories in the Clone Wars era sort of filled in the gaps. And for people like you and I that may or may not have loved the prequel movies, he changed them. He changed the story. He made Anakin's fall. For me, he made Anakin's fall mean much more than it did when I saw it in the theaters, right? And by bringing Ahsoka in, by bringing those connectors in, he's made it so that the prequels are not the prequels make more sense. And I'm generally not a fan of having to have read additional content to get the most out of the story that you can. However, I think we also need to remember that we are a small minority of ticket buyers. So whereas I had issues with Rise of Skywalker, I don't hate it by any means. It's a Star Wars movie, so I really enjoyed it. But it's my number 11 film right now. That being said, the people who go to see that, who are what Jerry from Bombad calls normies, they love it, and that's awesome because it works at that level. So I have a point here.
Well, yeah,
he fixed, quote unquote, fixed. And I'm going to use a broad statement, recognizing that it's I'm overstating it, but he fixed the prequels. He's working on potentially fixing the sequels. Now, I don't mean that the sequels need to be fixed, but there is no doubt a rift in the fandom. There's no doubt a inconsistency in the story, and so perhaps in this Mandalorian time frame, he's doing two things. One, now I'm doing too much talking, but he's doing two things. One is he is making connections for people who felt disconnected when the sequels came out, right? Who he is intentionally and very, very effectively connecting to things that are now legends by throwing you a Thrawn, by throwing you some of these one-off sort of mentions of things that people like you and I who lived off the EU. And honestly, point blank, I was not disappointed when they got rid of the EU. I thought parts of it were confusing, parts of it were not great, but interesting, right? So we lived with that. But the other thing that I think he's doing, and again, I'll reference my buddy Scotty J-Ro. Scotty is making it so that you don't have a sequel trilogy, a prequel trilogy, and an original trilogy. You just have Star Wars. And so here's where I think it's going. I believe that we're going to see a situation where things like Heir to the Empire and Dark Empire, which are two very solid and very, almost considered gospel by people before Disney purchased Lucasfilm. I think we're going to see a version of that in the flowing stories. And I don't think we're going to see Han and Leia, and I don't think we're going to see, obviously they're not going to totally retcon it and give us twins and all that stuff, but I do think we're going to get the story that happened in that time frame from a different point of view. I don't think we're going to get de-aged Harrison Ford and that sort of thing, but I do think we are going to get what happened in the galaxy at that time and be able to show cloned emperors and some of the Luke's Jedi Academy, which failed. I don't think we're going to see Luke, by the way. I'm going to go on the record saying the only other time we're going to see Luke Skywalker in Star Wars live action is going to be in the Ahsoka series, and it's going to be in one episode, and it's going to be for about 5 minutes, and it's going to be him telling Ahsoka that Vader was saved.
Yes,
right? That's what I want to see.
I want that so bad.
That's yes. You and I are on the same page there. But where I'm going with this is, and I'd love your opinion on it, is do you think that is where this is going to go? And is that what the impact of Luke Skywalker is on by coming into the Mandalorian? Do we think he's going to help usher in some of the stories that, again, for better or worse, and I'm not saying they were better stories or worse stories, some of it was really bad and some of it was really good, but are we going to finally live some of those things that people expected to see as the sequels in a different sort of way of telling those stories?
Absolutely. I think two things about that. I think, first of all, what you're saying about Filoni and what we know and what I love so much about Filoni is how he was a straight up apprentice under George Lucas. Like he came in, to read that story about how he got that job and how he came in and he had these drawings and he had all this, whatever. And George, just kind of being George, seemed like he didn't care and was dismissive. And then he comes back in and he's like, no, like, this is good.
This is what I want.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. This is what I want. Like, this is it, but that to me just reads like George Lucas is just kind of that strange guy that has it, but he has a very defined story. And so when you were talking about that and talking about Clone Wars, for me, Clone Wars, like, of course, Filoni was so heavily involved with that, but Clone Wars being before Disney, like that was George being able to work out those other things that he didn't get to do. And George being able to say, one line in Star Wars where he says, he was a pilot on a spice freighter or we served together during the Clone Wars or whatever, what he said, what Obi-Wan says.
Yep.
Like, okay, what are the Clone Wars? Like now we have this entire thing that gets expanded, but it was a chance for George to go, I had this other idea about the Force and Mortis, and I wanted that to be more fleshed out. So let's do a 4-episode run of Mortis, or let's do, it was a chance for him to work out some things that he couldn't do in movies. And especially, after the prequels, and, I don't think that he would have, if he had come to anybody and said, hey, I want to make another one, somebody would have thrown money at him and allowed it to happen. Sure. But for what it went through, even in those movies, it was a chance for him to, again, go, there's another part of the story I wanted to tell. And it was able to plug in, fill in bits. So I think there's that aspect of it, just from, it gave George an outlet to get these other things out that he hadn't had a chance to get out before. As far as Luke is, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, do you think that, and there's a comment that's up here from a gentleman named Ben Bamboo. I like saying that name. Saying that everything is leading up to a face-off with the new villain, which will include the main cast. It's going to be the sequels we always wanted. So I don't necessarily want to get into the sequels we always wanted, but what I do think is an interesting point there, and your take, would that kind of storytelling help heal the fandom? And I don't want to go into all the fighting, because there's opinions on all sides and blah blah blah. But do you think that kind of thing would be able to help heal where the fandom sits right now?
I don't think so, and no. I think that's because, like anything, you're not going to make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time. Right.
There's
nothing that Disney can do
of that, right?
If you did something to fix the sequels, it might make you and I mad. Or if you did something to fix the sequels, and it might make Scotty and Jerry, who are Phantom Menace era, like everybody has a buy-in, everybody has a tie-in, everybody has something that anchors them to Star Wars, whether it's Clone Wars, the movies, OT, PT, ST, whatever, all the T's that we have. nobody's going to be happy. And I don't
Right.
think that's the point. And we say this all the time. I think I actually said it Friday night on the call-in show. This is art. And, if you want, Raven was on and she talked about, if this is going to be about space wizards, let it be about space wizards. Don't try to make it about politics, or don't try to make it, let's call a spade a spade.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at these movies and go, this is fun.
Yeah.
George Lucas himself has said it more times than any of us can count. These were kids' movies. Like, this was supposed to be fun. This was a chance for him to do something he wanted to do.
Right.
It was not supposed to be, something that made people hate each other, or so. And it's art and it's film and there's interpretation there. Like, we can't, what I like about this, about Rise of Skywalker is not the same things that you like about Rise of Skywalker, and that's fine.
Right.
I don't hate you. I'm glad to be here. This is fun.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be fun, and we're supposed to be able to say, okay, cool. That's weird. I wish they had done, whatever.
Yeah.
You bring up, relatively, regularly, and that's not a shot at you, but like a holocron versus a wayfinder.
Right. Yep.
That's an easy way to go. I wanted it to be a holocron too.
Yep.
But I'm not mad that it's a wayfinder. And part of the reason I'm not is because my dad, who's not as invested in Star Wars as I am, is going to go, wayfinder, GPS. Oh, I get it. It makes sense. It helps them find the thing they need.
Yep.
Because, to come back to one of your other points, when you talked about fans like us being in the minority, we said this on one of our Mando episodes, like chapter, I don't know, episode 5 or 6 of this season. This is the exact thing I said to Steve is, we're the weirdos. Like, we're in the minority of people who spend way too much time thinking about this and way too much time going, I'm going to go talk to my friends on the internet for 2 hours about it.
Yeah. Well, and
then to be mad about it. Like, the majority of the people that are consuming Star Wars are normies,
and that's the thing and I think that's one thing that we totally forget. We get into this sort of echo chamber, and
I'm the weirdo. That's
we're definitely the odd men and women out. And I would urge people to check out. I did a little 10-minute interview with my dad right after the Ahsoka episode.
It was great.
Because I always reference my dad. I always reference him as that sort of that normie point, the people who may or may not know where we are in the story. And the great thing, and this is a credit to Filoni and Favreau, and I think this is what makes them so great. I say this a lot. I say that, when you watch The Gallery, I always look at Filoni as sort of the nerd in the room, right? He's the guy who's like, well, actually, that lightsaber is supposed to be green instead of blue, things that Favreau's not going to pick up, but Favreau knows he needs to tell a story. And what they're doing is they're doing a really nice job of connecting that stuff in a way where and this is what makes it so important. And this is why I think Rebels and Clone Wars weren't as successful as people may have wanted to be, or not saying they weren't successful, because they were in their own way. But my dad didn't care to watch 7 seasons of Clone Wars, but it was there for you and me, right? Clone Wars, let's face it, was for the 3,000 people who follow me on Twitter. Though that was who that was for. But now the cool thing is, after my dad watched chapter 16, I just got a very simple text from him saying, watch chapter 16. I have some questions. And me and my dad had an hour-long conversation just on that. And so I think that's if they're going to deliver a story that works at that level, at the level of people who are Star Wars fans but don't have a podcast and aren't on Twitter all day, and it's still a compelling story, and it also works for you and I, and look, we can't minimize it. The people who hated the sequels, specifically The Last Jedi and the Rian Johnson film and all that sort of thing, they are a powerful voice, and for better or worse, they have a position, and you don't want to cater to them. You don't want to cater to any fan. Like, don't cater to me. Give me a good story and I'll be happy. But to be able to create a story that's going to make the majority of people happy, I think that's the key point, and that's what Favreau and Filoni seem to be on a really strong path for.
Absolutely. And it's so that's exactly right. The point, you talked about your dad, and when I watched that interview with your dad, which was great, it inspired me. I was like, I'm going to call my dad. I'm going to ask him what he thought. Like, because I watched that interview, I was like, I'm going to call my dad and see what he says. And he had thoughts, but it wasn't like, he was like, well, isn't that such and such? And I was like, no, okay, never. It didn't go as far as I wanted. That's fine. Dad, I love you anyhow. But at the same time, talking about the accessibility, like my mother, who doesn't know anything about any sci-fi or whatever. Right. But my dad called me one day and said, hey, your mom's been watching Mandalorian with me, and now she wants a Baby Yoda for Christmas. So I had to go out on the stealth and buy a Baby Yoda to drop off to my dad to give her for Christmas, because she doesn't know any Star Wars anything, but she was down for that. Like that drew her in, and that appealed across that wide thing. My wife is a different version of that. She knows that it's a thing. She knows that Harper, my oldest, during this second season, while the girls were still in school, when those episodes dropped on Fridays, we would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning while everybody was still asleep, and Harper and I would watch it before she went to school. And we actually did some little fun things in the podcast. We called it Harper's Hot Take, and I'd record a little question with her on the way to school to add to the podcast. Nice. And like, we were like 3 or 4 weeks into that, and my wife was like, wait, you're doing what? Y'all are getting up at 5 in the morning to watch a Star Wars?
What is the matter with
you? Again, it's totally over her head. But what she did love is Cobb Vanth, because Timothy Oliphant is a man, and we love Justified, and we love Deadwood, and those are big shows for her and I. So I was like, I know you don't care about Star Wars, but I need you to watch this 3-minute clip. So I showed her when he came in that first episode, and when she took that helmet off, she went, oh my God, he's hot. And I went, okay, we're done here. We can move on. And she's not wrong.
It's funny too, because I mean, that was probably the deepest cut. A lot of people say there were in Bo-Katan's a deep cut. Yes, no doubt. But if you look at the number of people who knew who Cobb Vanth was, holy cow, that was an incredible, and it was done so well. And like I said, when I talked to my dad, he didn't care. He didn't care that I already knew that story or a version of it.
And for me, again, and the deep cut of Cobb Vanth, the deep cut of all that. Even more, because I don't know if you ever watched Deadwood. I've seen Deadwood several times. It's one of the best TV shows.
Really good. Yeah.
The Weequay bartender. Do you know this?
No, I don't know. What?
The Weequay bartender is the actor W. Earl Brown, who was Dan Doherty in Deadwood, who was the right-hand man to Al Swearingen. And he was the barkeep. Wow. They brought him back to play the barkeep to this same, like, and so when I figured, because I heard the voice and I thought, oh my God, I know that voice. That's Dan from it was, so again, on an Easter egg level, on a fan, people, again, the weirdos, the me's, that was a big thing. But to come to kind of try, I can't bring it back in because I've gotten us way off track.
Reel it back in here, buddy. Reel it back in.
We're way out there now at this point. But it's the connecting points. There is still a way in for everybody. There is still a way, and it doesn't have to be fixed. And that's, I've been pushing hard, and y'all have been, other folks in the network have been pushing. Spark of positivity. We don't need, and you said it a minute ago, nobody needs to be responded to. We don't need to give the voice to the people who are going to pitch a fit about whatever the thing is that they don't like. If you don't like it, that's fine, but you don't have to make other people miserable if you don't like it. And what I'm reminded of, thinking about this fandom that I love with my whole heart, is one of my all-time favorite TV shows, probably my all-time favorite TV shows, The West Wing.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I've seen it so many times, it's probably not good to say out loud. But there's an episode where this Republican lawmaker is talking to Bradley Whitford's character, Josh Lyman, and they're talking about all these different things. And what happened was the Republican lawmaker said to him, he said, you're spending all this time being mad, and you're spending all this time trying to fight. He said, take the NRA, for example. He said, if you wanted to change the NRA, he said, the NRA has 2 million members. Get 3 million people who agree with you and join the NRA, and the next day call a vote to change what you don't like. That's what I see for Star Wars, and this whole spark of positivity thing is, if we don't like it, let's start speaking up. Let's start talking about the happy things. Let's start talking about the fact that High Republic has amazing creators, that has amazing stories and fun things. It may not be for me, but it doesn't have to be for me.
I think that's the really important thing. And I say it a lot, and I'll say it to anybody who listens, and I'll say it now because people are listening. I always go back to one of my favorite bands of all time is Metallica. I love them. I grew up with them. I didn't grow up with them. That would be cool, but I did. I grew up with them.
They were neighbors.
Right. Yeah. They were like Paul Stanley to Scotty J. Rowe. But
That's
like
a very
the
special
last couple of
relationship.
albums were not. I didn't like them, but I don't listen to them, and I don't go on Twitter to look for people who are like, I love and now with Metallica, it's like 5-6 years old since the last album, but I'm not like waiting for people to say they like it and tell them why they're wrong. I don't really care, and that's when people see the Kathleen Kennedy shirt saying Star Wars is for everyone, I don't see it as like trying to be all inclusive and trying to be keep the political correctness to the side, which it's and all that stuff. The point that I think it means is like my son loves Clone Wars. You've heard me talk about that 100 times. I don't know if he would be able to sit through A New Hope. It's a different type of movie. It's a 1977 film. I don't really think he would sit through it. He'll sit through 7 straight episodes of Clone Wars, but that's fine. And Star Wars gives us that, and it gives us this. It gives us these conversations and those places to connect. Look, I'll be transparent. I have people slide into my DMs who are on that I hate The Last Jedi team, right? And I'll have conversations with them because it's interesting to find out where it comes from. Do I agree with it? Not at all. And but it's okay if you want to have a conversation. I think that's important to have. What's the quote? I'm not even gonna attribute it to somebody because I'll get it wrong. But it's if you want to win the battle, talk to your enemies, not your friends, and you need to understand their point of view. And you know what? I understand it. If again, I'll use Metallica as the example. The songs that they're doing, that's not the Metallica I know. The voice of James Hetfield, that's not the voice of James Hetfield that I grew up with. That's not my Luke Skywalker. I get it, but I still have those first 5 albums or 6 albums that I love, and I will blast in my car at top level.
And guess what? I'm not coming to your house to knock on your door and take them away from you because I disagree.
Right. And I'm not writing a petition that says, hey, Metallica, re-record this album.
Fix it.
But it's a different world. And we could go off on that and I'll pull us back from there because it is a different world. It's, when Game of Thrones came out, there was petitions about that. And so blah, blah, blah. There's always going to be concerns about that. But to your point, if you focus on that spark of positivity, focus on only the positive things. One of the things I'm trying to do in 2021 is not get as involved in the conversations that are going after things, because honestly, you're not. Has anybody's mind ever been changed? Have you ever seen a tweet that says, The Last Jedi was awful, and you say, you know what, I used to like that movie, but no, you're right. You're right. It's awful. Or vice versa. Like for me to go and say, but here's what I liked about it. I felt like it was a very interesting character study in a very small film, trying to tell the story from a different perspective and tell you why Luke Skywalker was a more complex character than he was years ago. I can't change emotion. And that's what this is all about. Sorry, absolutely. I just spoke more than my guest on the show.
No. Yeah, we are in lockstep on this. I agree with you completely. And I think that there is so much. And again, we live in a ever-changing world. Yep. Social media has made the world much smaller than it's ever been in our lifetime. When I was in college and before, we didn't have, I think about news cycles. It used to be that you had a 24-hour news cycle. Like you had to write a story, report on it, publish it, get it out. And now like it's instant. And the way the news works most of the time is get the headline first and then fact check it later.
Sure.
And that applies to Star Wars, and that applies to Marvel, and that applies to Game of Thrones, and that applies to anything. Somebody just wants to be first, and then they'll deal with the rest of the details after that.
Yep.
And, there are plenty of times when I go, yeah, I'd like to go back to not knowing what's going on all the time. I'd like to wake up tomorrow and read the news, or I'd like to wake up, but we have, polarizations on everything.
Sure.
Is that, I live in the state of Alabama. This is not a great example. It's an example. College football is bigger here than anything else. You have the University of Alabama, which I'm sure you've heard of, and that guy, Nick Saban, he's done a couple of things. Not my team. I'm an Auburn fan, but we have a hardcore, long-running rival between Auburn and Alabama. I'm married to an Alabama fan and an Alabama grad, so we have what we call a house divided. But in this state, and we're fine with it. It's not a big deal. But in this state, it's polarizing, and it's to some people, it's only black and white. There's no gray. It can't just be football. It can't just be, it's fun. And in the end and I used to be that way. And I've gotten over that as I've gotten older and realized, what the hell am I doing? Am I really upset because a football team that I literally have nothing to do with? I don't coach. I don't, they don't pay me. And I'm, it makes me miserable the next day because they lost. Like, what is that about? Like,
right.
It's a thing. Yeah. I see these LSU people. Go away, Scotty. But there's that. And you have it on a political spectrum, and you have it on a, are you, whatever it is, people are going to take sides. They're going to be tribalism. But at the end of the day, we're going, does that really matter? It doesn't. Like, it's fun. It's supposed to be fun. And if this thing makes me miserable, like, maybe I'm not supposed to do it. And I'm so thankful that Star Wars has never made me miserable, to be perfectly honest. Like, there are things that aren't for me. There are things that I don't like. But I go to sleep at night the same way I did the night before. And I don't feel like I need to go online and tell somebody, here's why this thing is wrong. And if you don't agree with me, you're the worst.
Right.
Like,
and honestly, the moment that happens, it's time to walk away.
Done.
Right?
It's time for me to be done.
This is an episode where we've talked about fathers quite a bit. And I think it's interesting because my dad, I play bass, you play bass. I play bass because my dad played bass. And there was one night he did a gig and he just was like, you know what, this isn't fun anymore. And he stopped. And I respect that. If I wake up one day and realize that, getting on Twitter or doing my show is just stressful or not fun, why do it? And I think, and that's an amazing thing. And it's probably a conversation for another time, and so I'll have to have you back on. I'm sorry to tell you.
Anytime.
But I think it's an interesting conversation to have about why Star Wars it does that and why it plays such an important role. In fact, it might be a good time to lead to this.
Get ready!
Okay, for what?
Oh man, that was a great segue to the 10 questions segment.
Amazing segue.
I'll tell you. This show is it's going up a notch. I feel like it's going up.
It's professional as hell.
And I think it's because of our guest, Mr. Nick Mielke. Nick, we are going to do the 10-question portion of the show. As you know, there are no wrong answers. I will not judge you, but many other people will. So let's start with the very first question. What is your favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book?
Okay. It's Empire Strikes Back. It just is. It is my favorite.
That's the boring answer, right? I just want you to
know. It is the boring answer. And as many times as I've heard this, and I've texted you multiple times about thoughts about the 10 questions and how I wanted to do all the questions and all the whatever, I know that's the boring answer and there's other boring answers, but like sometimes that's the way it goes. But I'll say this about Empire Strikes Back. It is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Right.
It is also my favorite movie of all time. Really? I love The Godfather. I love Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like there's a small, I like to couch things a lot of times. And what is your Mount Rushmore of songs? That gives you 4. That gives you the chance to pick something, do something, put something without having to pick the favorite child.
Yep.
But Empire Strikes Back is the favorite movie. Like that's it. Not only of Star Wars, but that's my personal favorite movie of all time.
So you said Mount Rushmore, just so I can get to know you a little bit more. What's your Mount Rushmore of movies? It be Star Wars movies. This is the first time Around the Galaxy is going beyond Star Wars. I'm pretty excited. I hope you are too. Go ahead. What's your Mount Rushmore of
Empire?
Movies? Yep.
Raiders.
Okay.
Godfather 2.
All right.
Godfather 1's amazing.
Sure.
But Godfather 2's better. This is where it gets tricky with the 4.
That fourth one is going to knock out about 500 other movies.
It's a lot with the fourth one. It might be Back to the Future.
Really? All right, that's an interesting one. By the way, Dark Jedi, Jared, the Dark Jedi, Jared. Thank you so
Jared.
much. He's the nice gentleman. That's a reference to Friday night's live show where I had both Jared and Nick on the screen at the same time. It was great.
That's right.
So Back to the Future. That's a great call, man.
It's a great movie.
It's not my Mount Rushmore, but it's a great.
It's classic to me in all the right ways. My kid, and this is the thing too. Talking about generations, talking about families, talking about dads, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm in that mode now. I've got twins that are 12 years old. I've got an 8-year-old. I've got a 4-year-old. So like, what are the things that we all connect with?
Yep.
What are the things that we,
What are
line
things
up
you
on?
can watch together, right? Yeah.
That's right. And we can watch together. And,
Yep.
we've spent so much about, we watched Gremlins over the Christmas break because I showed them.
We did too. Yep.
I showed them the Grogu meme that was Grogu and Gizmo.
Yep.
Same moms, different dads or whatever that meme was.
Yep.
And my kids looked at me like, I don't know what this means because they didn't know who Gizmo was.
Jackson called him the Baby Yoda puppy monkey. Which I thought
exactly.
Really
it's amazing. So I was like, oh, what the heck? And again, Gremlins, like Die Hard, it's a good Christmas movie. Like
Sure.
It takes place at Christmas time. It's, it is what it is. So we watched that, but like my kids love Back to the Future. In fact, over the last, month or so, they're like, when can we watch Back to the Future again? Like we've had those moments, we've had those little connecting things, but I do love Back to the Future. And after this is over with, like tonight at midnight when I'm laying in bed, I'm going to think about, no, I should have said this as my fourth movie. So that's what I'm going to own for now. To finish out this first question, as far as the book goes, I love the original Thrawn trilogy. I don't apologize for it. Yeah. Expanded EU with its own problems and warts and whatever. I love those books. I really do. I didn't need a Jedi Luke or Jorus Sabaoth and the clone, whatever. But that's what I had, and I read them so many times when we didn't have Star Wars that like I just love them. Like I really do. TV shows, Mandalorian's fantastic, but I love Rebels, and I'm not the right age to love Rebels the way I do. I don't think.
Right.
The first couple episodes, I'm like, this feels like a kid show. It feels like whatever. But the lore and the storytelling that they do in Rebels, my God, like I didn't love Ahsoka until I saw her in Rebels. Like again, my connection to Clone Wars, all of that stuff. But like, I really love Rebels. It really is one of my favorite.
Well, I will tell you, when you say Rebels, I'm a big Rebels fan, and I do drift back and forth between Rebels and Clone Wars as to which one I prefer, and it's usually which one I've watched last because. And I would encourage everybody who's listening to go back and watch episode 1 of Rebels again, and get past the animation and think of it as a Star Wars movie. It's got all the elements of a Star Wars movie. It's got the action, it's got the ships, it's got the fun chase, it's got the sort of the double cross, and it's a Star Wars movie in 22 minutes. It is really, really good. And then it kicks off, and again, the other thing that I love that a lot of people have said is that Filoni has yet to actually deliver a story based on what he's called it, right? So Mandalorian was going to be this Old West kind of bounty hunter story, and it turned into a Force story and a story of a father and son. Rebels, sure, it's about the early Rebel Alliance, but it's a Jedi story. It's a fantastic Jedi story. So that's great. So do you have a favorite book before we move on to the next question?
Oh, it was the Thrawn trilogy.
Oh, you said Thrawn. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I have a very short attention span, very short memory.
And I see Framey in the comments. They said they're rewatching Rebels now. Just close out the second season as our favorite Star Wars. My personal hill that I'm willing to die on at the moment is that Star Wars Rebels is the best of the Disney era Star Wars storytelling.
Whoa. Wow. Okay.
And I love Last Jedi. I love The Last Jedi a lot more than, a lot of people in our fandom would appreciate.
Right.
But Rebels, to me, if you look at, what they do with the lore, Kanan, oh my gosh, like that's a whole show again.
Yeah, no, I think, Kanan and when James Baney from the Resistance broadcast was on, that's his favorite character. It's a very deep character. There's a lot going on.
Good stuff.
So, all right. So the next question is, if you could live on any Star Wars planet, where would you call home?
God, this is a newer question. So I have
It is. You've only heard this one twice, I think.
Well, here's how I will couch it. We live in Central Alabama. We are 3 hours from the Gulf Coast, which has amazing beaches. My wife would love nothing more than to be on the beach from sun up to sundown. The beach doesn't do it for me. I am a mountains or a lake guy.
All right. The beard gives that away, by the way, just so you know.
I'll say, if I can carry on my outdoorsman cred that I'm trying to build here weekly, I'm going to go with indoor. I mean, you've got sequoias, you've got, forest, trees, camping. Like camping is my vibe. Like that's my deal. And murder bears. But you know what? If I'm just hairy enough, maybe they'll think I'm one of them. I mean, it didn't work.
A little bit more beard. Yeah. Let that hair go. Yeah.
Well, I only had 2 haircuts in 2020, Pete. So I'm trying my best to get there.
Yeah. With hair like I have, I have to go every 2 weeks. I have to keep up with it. It was frightening.
It's working for you, so keep it up.
Well, thank you so much, sir. This is now turning into a mutual admiration society. Let's get to the next question before this gets
Yes,
uncomfortable
please.
for one of us. So, would you consider yourself a rebel or an Imperial?
This is the question I probably struggle the most with.
Yeah, because you got to be real about it, right? I mean, we all want to be rebels, right?
Everybody wants to be rebels,
heart,
but
right?
I am a rule follower to an nth degree.
Yep.
And the Empire is about rules and order and organization. And a lot of their stuff is cool. Like the uniforms are cool. The ships are cool. It all just lines up and stacks up. And you see all those TIE fighters hanging, in a row.
It's pretty cool.
But I'm a rebel. I'm a rebel at heart.
Yeah. Well, it's all right. I think it's.
I'm gonna have to go 60-40 Rebel Imperial. That's the line.
No, okay, that's fair. Hey, and you know what? A lot of rebels started as Imperials and realized that
I could be one of those traitors.
You could be. You almost. You've got sort of the you got the Obi-Wan Kenobi look. I think you have a little Justin Timberlake thing going on there. But you also have, if you shave that beard just right, you might be able to pull off an Agent Callus. I'm not sure. You might be able to do that. What do you guys in the chat think?
That
you
is
Callus there?
Harper, my 12-year-old's favorite character from Star Wars Rebels is actually Agent Callus. So she's going to be thrilled to watch this tomorrow and hear that.
I can't think of his name now. Who was the guy who told Cassian to kill Jin's father? I wanted him to be Callus, and he should have been Callus. It would have been so easy to do that. But
that would have been good. Yeah, I'm totally with you.
All right, so let's move to the next question.
Come on.
Question number 4 is, what is your favorite Star Wars sound effect? Oh, I thought you were about to do one there. That little
sound effects aren't going to be terrible impressions. Definitely not. Gosh, there's so many. I'm going to go with the TIE Fighter, the original screaming TIE Fighter sound. It still has the ability to kind of send a chill up your spine if it hits you at the right time. Like, it's so good when it pans across from right to left, when you're watching it, if you're watching it in headphones, if you've got it just in that right moment. Lightsabers are great. I will say, too, and shout out to Josh. Last night, if anybody watched Chronicles, he did the unboxing of the Target Millennium Falcon Galaxy's Edge. 1A, 1B is... 1B is the Falcon not starting up. That sound where it wants to start. And when you hear the podcast, there's a great podcast called 20,000 Hertz where it's all about sound. I encourage anybody to check it out. They did a Star Wars episode on May the 4th last year, the year before. And it was about Ben Burtt and all the different sound things. And they go through and they talk about how they built some of these sounds, Clayton did a great piece about it.
Yes.
There's so many great ways to read about Ben Burtt and all the things that he did. But it's an old biplane that doesn't crank and 2 other things. And that sound to me is so satisfying. And my favorite thing that I laughed out loud at last night was when Josh flipped the switch on that Millennium Falcon toy that switched it from current Galaxy's Edge, Hondo, whatever, to original trilogy stuff. And he hit the button and it did that sound and he just kind of lost it. That was it. So 1A is TIE Fighter, 1B is the Falcon not starting up.
And I think that sound was also in Raiders, wasn't it?
It was in Raiders. It's the biplane in Raiders.
Right. Yep. So, God, Ben Burtt's the man. You probably know because you listen to the show, but Ben Burtt was my very first Star Wars article ever. Interviewed him, and I'm one of the few people that I know that interviewed him twice. So I'm very lucky. He wouldn't remember me, but
it doesn't matter. You did it. You were there.
That's right. Twice, 2 times. All right. Next question. Question number 5. Who or what is your favorite droid? I used to just limit this to 3PO and R2, but that just felt too binary. So who is your favorite droid, or what is your actually, before you answer, is it what or who? I'm struggling with how to word this question. Is it what?
I would be inclined towards what, because I think we're to believe droids are not gendered.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if R2-D2 is a boy, but I've always assumed he's a he.
Yeah.
BB-8, Dio, whoever the droids are, I don't know. But this is a question that doesn't require any thought. It's R2-D2, hands down.
Well, you said on your show, because I actually do listen to your show,
Yeah.
you said that R2 is not only your favorite robot, but your favorite character, Star Wars.
R2D2 is my favorite Star Wars character. And you can't really see, but this shelf back here is the R2D2 shelf with a couple other things thrown in. I don't have nearly the R2s that I want or need, but it's R2. There's no question.
So, just like I've always wanted to own a full set of Stormtrooper armor, you want to have one of those home built R2s in your house, I imagine, right?
For sure. I've as a aspiring, sort of woodworker, I have actually spent time researching and downloading the plans for people to build their own R2s.
Oh yeah.
I'm not there. I can't do it. I'm not ready for it. But I've watched a ridiculous amount of YouTube videos about people who build their own R2s. There's a guy who lives in rural Alabama, 15 miles from us, that apparently has one and is one of these droid builder forums. And, I got that deep and I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. And then I stopped and went, I can't do that. I have kids and stuff I have to pay for.
The one thing that you have to own, and I hope you own it, and if you don't, you need to go on eBay as soon as we're done here and get it, is the Sphero R2D2.
I don't have one.
Okay, as soon as you're done here, go, because unlike the BB-8 will play on your phone. The sound effects play on your phone, but the Sphero R2D2, the sounds come out of the unit and it moves and it makes the noises and it's got the sounds. It is probably one of my favorite Star Wars collectibles.
I have this one.
Yeah.
This is not the Sphero. I think it's about the same size, but it was the Walmart more it's still a phone app.
Yes. Yep. I think I have that one somewhere too. Yeah.
And a buddy of mine found it on clearance for $20. Shout out to my friend Chad. He found it for $20. Harper loves it. My girls will play with it every now and then. They put it on their phones, though, whatever. It sits on my desk. It's the right size for my 1977 12-inch C-3PO.
Oh, nice.
No. That's not right. I'm sorry. I'm incorrect. Chronicles will get me if I don't get that right.
Get it right.
But anyhow, it's a fun one. We have a flea market 10 miles north of us. And I saw them a year or so ago at this flea market, and they had several of them, and the Spheros were like $20. And it was one of those things where I was like, I should buy this, but I don't know if it works because it's at a flea market, and I hesitated and whatever. And I need to go back. I definitely need to go back and grab one.
It does look great with your Beyond the Blast Doors, the Founders Kit light that you get if you join Beyond the Blast Doors on Patreon at patreon.com/Beyond the Blast Doors.
But for a cheeseburger a month, you could have
just a cheeseburger a month,
just like that.
Something just like that. Exactly. Framey says we have the R2D2 popper, and I got it last year for Christmas. This year, my kitchen appliance from Star Wars was a toaster. You don't have the popcorn popper? This is becoming
I don't have the popcorn popper. That's right.
You got to get one. All right, let's move to the next.
R2, hands down.
Yes. All right. R2. Awesome. So, question number 6: if you could own any spaceship or vehicle in the Star Wars universe, what would it be?
Okay. I've heard the show enough. I've heard the questions long enough to know there's the easy answer. There's the cheater answer. Everybody knows what the cheater answer is.
Right, everybody says the Falcon. Everybody says the Falcon. Yeah. What do you got?
And that is my answer, but I'm going to pick something else because I don't want to just be that boring for, okay. the 5 people who like me that are still hanging out and talking.
I deliberately did not pick the Falcon when I was my own guest on the show. Just FYI.
That's right. You didn't. And I listened to that episode as well. So behind the Falcon, which is the answer, but if I was to go next,
1B.
Vintage Falcon right here, still working on getting the parts to get it back to full speed. Snowspeeder.
Ooh,
I love the Snowspeeder from Empire.
Yeah,
it's a great ship, and I've always thought about, and I think about this all the time. They talk about adapting them for the cold.
Yeah,
are these planet-bound speeders other places where it's not so cold? Did we get these speeders out in space once they get outside of a planet atmosphere? I need to know some more about that.
Good question.
It's a good ship. It's a great looking ship. It's got a nice, it's got a good angle. It's got good lines. Everything about it works for me.
It's a great point. And it is called the Snow Speeder when in toy version, but I like to imagine that you could also see that speeder on Tatooine, or you could see it in Endor. You could see it wherever. Yeah.
We do also vintage. We're
Yeah,
missing.
is that the vintage one? Does it have batteries in it? Can you hit those lights?
There's no batteries in it at the moment.
All right.
Sorry. But I have batteries in the troop transport over my shoulder if we get there later.
Ben Bamboo, who's back again, says Dash Rendar ship the Outrider. That's a great ship too. I think Steele said that on my show, and I hadn't thought about it before, but boy, that's a great call. All right, question number 7 is: what is your favorite Star Wars collectible that you own? Speaking of collectibles and looking at that glorious wall behind you,
absolutely.
What's your favorite? Bring you in full screen.
I have talked several times about the blaster, the Han Solo blaster behind me. Yep. That's a favorite. I think I did that on one of the Holo Chronicles shows recently. I'm going to change it up a little bit because, again, I want to stay not a little unpredictable. And nobody worry about my arms, but I have a trench run tattoo.
I do like that tattoo. That is a cool tattoo.
And it's the Star Wars collectible that I get to take with me. And because I am a sentimental fool, the numbers for the countdown is actually my wedding anniversary.
Look at that.
So
you got a tattoo of Star Wars, and you've said before that your wife does not care as much about Star Wars as you do, but you've been able to, you know what? I might steal that idea. I don't have any tattoos. I've thought about getting a tattoo, and I always knew it would be a Star Wars tattoo. I might just totally steal that one. I just might steal that one if I have to.
I am a very lucky man in that I have tattoos. My wife has tattoos. Also, Shabby, my man. It's the logo. I see it right there.
He's there.
My wife has some tattoos, and this is a whole other separate conversation, podcast, whatever. I don't care about any artwork that hangs on my wall. Like, that's not my deal.
Right.
But, like, I love the idea of tattoos, things that you can take with you. It's an artwork that appeals to you. I have, again, this is an outline of a family picture, a family photograph that we took years ago. It's all of my women, me, it's an Easter picture from years ago. I've got some other ones on my other arms. I'm saving this right arm where the trench run tattoo is because I kind of hope that maybe one day down the road, it's a whole Star Wars thing. My wife has some tattoos as well, and she's in favor of tattoos. It's not an issue. It's not like a hang up. But tattoos, like a lot you things, if you want it done right, they cost money.
They do.
And
they do. And by the way, a tattoo, you want it done right.
Yes, you do. Yes, you absolutely do.
And it's totally off topic, but you see people like posting pictures of their Star Wars tattoos, and some of them look amazing and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I always feel really bad when somebody posts like a negative thing about somebody's tattoo, because you can't, like, if you post a picture of
it's not going away.
If I have a painting on the wall and you're like, I don't love that painting, I can take that down.
You could take it down.
But if I have a bad Yoda tattoo,
it's there. And and Jerry, my man Jerry, where we are, where is it? It's Greedo and Anakin in a fist fight at Celebration, because it's Celebration, and I went to Celebration in 2017 in Orlando. It was amazing. I only went for one day. Here's a pro tip for Celebration. You need more than one day.
Yes.
I didn't know what I was getting into. I went with my buddy Chad. We literally drove from Alabama overnight to Orlando, went to Celebration for a day, came home. I was completely overwhelmed, but it was amazing. I can't wait to go back. I'm actually hoping to secretly hatch some plans to be in Anaheim in 2022, meet up with all these pod fam, all the people that are going to be there.
It's too late, man. It's too late.
It's not a secret for you. It's a secret from the people I live in this house with. That's
if your daughter watches this tomorrow, like you said she will, your wife will know. We're
gonna figure it out.
I'll edit that out for you if you need me to.
But they have at Celebration, if you've never been to Celebration, they have an entire tattoo pavilion, and they bring in
tattoos.
Yes, and they bring in like 15 to 20 artists. They list them ahead of time. You contact them. You set up an appointment, and like I probably walked through that tattoo pavilion, and I tried a couple of times to get in with somebody and it didn't work out, but like you could just wander in and out and people are getting tattoos in the convention floor, and it's Greedo fighting Anakin, which is what Jerry's going to get. I promised him that I will be there and I will hold his hand while he does it. As long as I get there, I am sticking to that promise.
See, this is a problem because now that I have, like I don't have any tattoos. I've never really thought that I need a tattoo, but now Now that you've shown me how you can do it and make your wife happy, I don't know. There's
a whole thing.
I don't
That's
know.
right.
All right. Well, this
There's
is
a way to
bad
go.
news for me. I'm not happy about this. This could be.
I'm here for you, Pete.
I don't know if I need that kind of support. I don't know. All right, let's move to the next question before I make another bad decision in my life. If you could be any character in Star Wars, who would it be and why?
It's Han Solo. Han Solo is the coolest. I mean, I wasn't a cool dude in high school. I'm not a cool dude now. I wanted to be Han Solo. Han Solo was the coolest growing up. Like the indifference he had when he shot Greedo because Han did shoot first. Let's not get twisted.
He did. Yep.
He's just cool. But here's what I love about Han Solo. Han Solo's cool, but there's still hubris there. Like he messes up and he makes mistakes and he has those moments when the Falcon won't start and he's going, come on, not now. Like, he's in it. He's the everyman. Jedis are cool. Luke Skywalker's cool as hell. I wanted to be Han Solo. That's who I wanted to be.
I think Han Solo is like every Star Wars fan or a lot of Star Wars fans in that he wants to be cool. And he thinks by acting cool, he's going to be cool. And it does work to a degree because we can all see through it, right? He's not Toro Calican, thank God. Who's just Toro Calican is like a failed Han Solo, right? So, but yeah,
prime example is the sequel trilogy.
Yeah,
You get him in Force Awakens when they bring the Falcon in, and he and Chewie are going back and forth. And he's like, "Yes, I have every time." Okay, well, there's that one time. Like, there's always somebody there to bring him back.
And it's always
not quite as cool as you think.
It's your best friend. That's what you need. Like you always have that best friend, and you're like, "Hey, remember that time?" And they're like, "Yeah, it didn't happen that way, man." So.
Shout out to Jason. He's that guy for me. I'm there.
Awesome.
I'm with it.
That's great. All right, question number 9.
Yes, sir.
It's another new one, new-ish question. Look, it's been 96 episodes. I had to break it up a little bit. What is your favorite Star Wars moment?
Wow, gosh, that's a big one. I don't think I've heard. Have you done it?
I think I did it once. I think.
I don't want to sound like I missed an episode, but
maybe not. I don't know. I think I did. Yes, I did it with Adam Frazier 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Wow, favorite Star Wars moment.
See now, aren't you glad you waited 93 episodes? Because now I actually have something that you have to
work for it.
And now, just like every other guest that you've listened to, and you're like, why are they taking so long to answer? Now you're that guy. Just pointing it out to you, just so you know.
I'm glad to be that guy. I'm honored to still be here. I can't believe I am here. Here's what it is. And I don't know if this answer will make sense, but I'm just going to throw it out there because that's what we do. There's an aesthetic, visual context to this answer.
Mm-hmm.
The shot in Empire that's backlit when you have Luke and Vader and those sabers crossed, and it's just the shadow of the two of them at the beginning of that fight in Empire. I love that. I love that shadowy father-son facing off against one another. First time, about to find out what's going on. He hasn't heard it yet. Luke hasn't told him. But it's just, we know, and of course, after you see it the first time, you know, but like Luke and Vader crossing swords, dark shadows, it's just, that's a tattoo I'm going to get. Like, if we go back to tattoos, like at some point, the two dark shadows of Luke and Vader and the colors of the two sabers crossing, that's all I need. 3 colors, black, red, blue. That's it.
Have you seen the new logo for the As Father and Son Boys? David Drennan.
Oh,
go check their logo on Twitter. Go to find them. That's I did the logo for them, which could also be your tattoo. I'll send it to you. You can use it as your tattoo.
I'm totally in. And if it comes from those guys, it's guaranteed to be awesome.
So that is a great moment, and I think again, much like a lot of Star Wars, you don't realize how important a moment it is at the time. I mean, Scotty said in the chat the Grogu moment is a big one. The introduction of Grogu, rather. It's hard to say Grogu and then follow it with a letter R word, like rather. Just a little Grogu, and it's also harder to do after a couple of glasses of scotch. All right, so that is a great moment. I am down to the last question here for you, and that question is, what is your go-to Star Wars quote?
I love this one, and I love every time it comes up, and I love every time that you talk about the language, the binary language of was it load lift?
The binary language of moisture evaporators.
Moisture evaporators.
Yes.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's my go-to.
Yeah.
And it has only recently kind of finally come to roost.
Okay.
This is a terrible story. As a dad, I have 4 daughters that go to 3 different schools.
Right.
So the school run most mornings is we stop here. I'm going to take the preschooler into her preschool while the other 3 wait in the car.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say 2 years ago, my twins are in seventh grade. Oh my God, 7th grade. They're in 7th grade now. But 2 years ago when they're in 5th grade, whatever it was, I would stop at the preschool and drop the preschooler off first. Get out of the car, and I would say to them, lock the doors. And then kind of under my breath, I'd say, and hope they don't have blasters. Because I'm being funny, because nobody else gets it, and it's me, and it's whatever. Now, 2 years later, and explaining it to them, they're like, so like my 12-year-old Harper, who's the one that loves Star Wars, she will text me like randomly. She's like, lock the doors, ... waiting for me to respond and hope they don't have blasters. Yeah. But I would say that when I got out of the car at our small church where the preschool is, which there's no threat, but I just, as a parent, you go, lock the doors. I'll be back in a minute.
Right.
Because I'm going to go to that door 40 feet away, drop your sister off and be right back. Yep. So I would close the door. I say, lock the doors. And then under my breath, I go, hope they don't have blasters. So that was, that's the most go-to. Yep. The one that speaks to me a lot, and you didn't ask me that question, but I'm doing it anyhow.
Hey, you know what? It's your show. You go for it. You do what you do.
That's right. I'm here for you, Pete. In The Last Jedi, when Luke is sitting with Yoda and Rey's gone, and he says they are the quote about masters and they are what they grow beyond. That I totally butchered it. Like that hits me. That's what I said in the Shannon video about being a parent in Star Wars. Like I have daughters. I love my daughters. I want them to be better than me. Yep. Like I want them to grow beyond what I've taught them. I hope that that's what I'm setting them up for, preparing them for. So on an emotional level, it's that quote. But on the most go-to, it's something dumb like lock the door and hope they don't have blasters. Really, really close behind it because it's just silly. Is in the detention level scene in Star Wars when Han's talking to the microphone and he says, "How are you doing?"
We're fine here. How are you?
Yeah, we're fine here. How are you? Like, what's better than that? Like, it's the most. I'm trying to be cool. Fly casual. It's that. So
right. Well, and that's why this question used to be, "What is your favorite Star Wars quote?" But I find go-to is it's a little bit different. Reference point. I mean,
I answered it 3 different ways.
Yeah, I might have to change it back if everybody's going to.
No, you're good.
No, you ruined it.
I took advantage of the rule.
You've ruined it.
I'm going to lock the door and hope they don't have blasters.
No, that's it. You've ruined it. I'm changing it back. I'm going to do
it. Show's over. Sorry, I ruined it for everybody.
Man, that's funny. All right, so Nick, thank you, man. This was so much fun. We could have gone for another 2 hours, which means that I'm definitely going to have you back. Nick, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Absolutely. Well, you've got it on the screen. My personal Twitter is at Nick Mielke 78. If you want to follow Podcast of the Whills, we are at Whills Pod. We would love for you to follow us there. We would love for you, of course, to subscribe to us. We are available on most of your major podcast platforms. You said Scotch, I say whiskey, but either way, we're here together. At Whills Pod, at Nick Mielke 78. Follow us, talk to us, send us messages. I love talking to people. I love being positive. I love having fun. I love making bad jokes. I love making good jokes. Star Wars is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be something we enjoy. It's not supposed to be something that stresses us out, wears us out. I will say I have a friend and my wife. She and my wife went to college together. They talk about different things and they say, if it hurts your feelings, what are you doing? If Star Wars hurts your feelings, you don't need to be in Star Wars. If your clothes don't fit, wear your clothes. Don't let your clothes hurt your feelings. Buy some different clothes or go on a walk or, whatever it is. Don't let something hurt your feelings. We're all about happy positivity. That's my deal. Like I have thoughts. I want to dig deep. I want to get nerd out. I want to talk about the sequel trilogy. Pete and I have gone back and forth about, relitigating, the sequel trilogy or Rise of Skywalker. It's not worth it. We don't need to do that. And you and I agree. Like, there's nothing to be gained from that. Like, we would want to do it because it would be fun to talk about.
Right.
There'd be a handful of people that listen to it and either take it personal or get mad, or I don't care about that. That's not the point. But we want to hang out. We want to have fun. Like, Star Wars is fun. I want it to be fun. If it's not fun, I'm out.
Yeah. And, we talked about it at the top, and it's a good way to end it, is that concept of, it's not about, you're not going to change anybody's mind. And the objective is to have some fun with it. And if you're not having fun with it, then as that brainwashed stormtrooper once said, move along. Well, Nick, thanks, man. This was so much fun, and I look forward to talking to you again probably tomorrow, but not on a podcast. But this is great, man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to not only what you do, but what the BTBD Network does. I love you guys. I love every show y'all have. I said this I think I said it actually in the Patreon app or in one of the Patreon chats. I'm not a joiner, quote unquote. I listen to a lot of shows that have Patreon things, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. Somebody else is going to subscribe to that. You're literally the only Patreon thing that I do, and it's because I love what you guys do. And it's not as much, hopefully I can grow that, do whatever. But I love what this network is. I love what seems to be the goals y'all have, your positivity, the things that you want to do to have fun and have, bring a difference, spread it out, cover all the different, whatevers. I love having Arzu on, Wednesday nights. Gosh, she doesn't know this, and hopefully she sees it, but like, I'm going to hit her up for one of our Empire series, episodes.
Yeah, she's great.
But that just love what y'all do. So thank you. It's an honor truly to be a part of this, to hang out and to have a chance to talk to you.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. And we will definitely talk again soon. Take care.
Awesome. Cheers.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Around the Galaxy. Thanks to our guests, and thank you for hanging out. If you had fun, please like, subscribe, and share. If you really liked it, please feel free to head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeyondTheBlastDoors. You can also find that link on BeyondTheBlastDoors.com, where you can keep up with this show and all the shows on the Beyond the Blast Doors network, as well as find a link to our merch store. And if you use the code ATGCast, you'll get 10% off your order. So until next time, this has been Pete Fletzer, and we'll see you for our next trip around the galaxy.
Around the Galaxy is copyright 2021 Pete and Seat Studios. Our music is brought to us by the band Silver Colored Knob, whose music can be found on Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find music.